Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Writing Craft podcast. And most importantly, happy Halloween.
Woo.
Woo!
Happy Halloween.
Yes, I hope you guys are having a spooky season. And I hope you guys are excited today. We're talking about some of our personal and just general area around where we live, ghost and spooky stories from, either personal experiences or experiences around the area that we are most familiar with. We already touched base a little bit on some things in the first episode that we did of the show. If you haven't already gone and listened or watched that yet, but we can definitely dive deeper into our personal little spooky horror stories for you today.
Yes, and I don't have a lot, unfortunately. I think that's one of the reasons why I am so intrigued and wanting to push myself into this area more to see if I can get more. I do believe that I touched on like every single thing that has happened to me in the first episode. So I might go over a couple of those, but I have prepared a Winnipeg story and a Montreal story because those are my cities that I know the most. And we are also dressed up today to a certain extent if you are watching the video version of the podcast. And I guess we're going to let you know sort of what our thinking was behind this. For me, I honestly just look for any excuse to put blood on my face. I, I like doing the sort of red makeup and stuff. I was going to do a costume, but I'm actually packing right now to put a bunch of things in storage. So it's chaos here. And I have headphones where a lot of my head based accessories wouldn't really work. So I recently got an amazing blood dress from Black Milk. I buy their blood dress every year whenever they come out with one. And then I put some blood on my face. So it's really not that complicated. It's just me having an unhealthy obsession with blood.
And that obsession inspired me because I very last minute realized I was supposed to dress up, even though it was my idea to do so in the beginning. But so I grabbed just like this fur, cloak, trying to be a little medievally. And I also have elf ears. You can't really tell with the headphones. But
They're
I was
very
trying
cute.
to go for like my, oh, thank you. But I was trying to go kind of for my Baldur's Gate character for Baldur's Gate 3, who's an elf. But then I saw the blood and I was like, you know what? Perfect. I can be like Astarion from Baldur's Gate inspired because he's a vampire elf. And so like my character allows him to suck my blood all the time. So I tried to put some bite marks on, add some blood, and then tried to be inspired by Holly to do some red eye makeup, but it just looks like a hot mess. But
oh, I love it.
For now, it's Halloween.
I love it. And anytime I can inspire someone to get a little bit bloodier, I'm happy.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love that for you. You're an inspiration for blood upset. That sounds weird. Blood obsession. Yeah, that sounds weird. It sounds like a magic power you get in a video game.
We're weird, and that's why it works. And hopefully, you're weird too. I'm sure you are if you're listening to us, and we're living it.
Yeah, I mean, either you're weird like us, or you're just like pretending to be weird for Halloween. In which case, this is not the place for you. We're like this all year around.
Every day is Halloween. If you know the Ministry song, that's my, it used to actually be my alarm clock for a while. I would just do that do
Oh,
do
really?
do do do, and then every day is Halloween, like every single morning. It's my life.
I love that. Yeah. At my day job, they have a podcast, and they were talking about like spooky stories and Halloween stuff. And every few seconds, they'd be like, "Oh, do you even like Halloween? Do you like Halloween? Oh, I know some people are like so obsessed with it." And then they like, I'm off camera recording, and they started like looking at me, so they're looking directly at the camera, and I was like, okay, it's almost like you're breaking the third wall, but
Yeah.
fourth wall and third wall at the same time because you're looking at the people on the camera and me behind the camera. I edited that today and it was hilarious.
I'm picturing like the office setting, everyone just sort of like looking over, and it pans over in that awkward way of like some people.
Some people love Halloween and are pumpkin spice bitches. And then like pan over to me, I'm over there with a pumpkin spice frappuccino and just like a Halloween t-shirt.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
just like
and
sipping, looking around uncomfortably. So let's I guess let's start to get into our stories, because well, when we were talking during our last podcast, we decided that we're writers. We talk about writing, we talk about magic, the occult, pagan goodness, but we haven't actually told a lot of stories in like your sort of classic storytelling way. So we wanted to share some stories, some personal, like Jenna was saying, and some that are local. For me, I guess I just will give a little bit of a summary before Jenna gets into hers, since we did go over a bunch of these in the first episode, where and I mean, go back and listen to it. Highly recommend.
yes.
Um, so I have had. I guess I'll just say my dad is what I would call a paranormal dampener, where things stay away from him. So I have had a theory that he passed that down to me because my main thing is maybe not that good of a reason, but it's something we have in common where every time we walk down the street, we're always putting out the street lights. Like we're walking down the street and the street lights are going out as we're walking by. So I'm thinking, do I have some sort of similar energy with him going on here? I wonder. Um, and because when I was growing up, we always lived in these super old houses with lots of history, and we would have minimal stuff go on, but never when he was around. And I think he mostly cut that off, especially because, we were all artists. We were at home all the time. Like my parents didn't leave the house. Like, my mom did like the accounting and stuff, and like the homemaking, and my dad did, he was coloring comics. So we were like the Three Musketeers. We were home together all the time. And I think maybe if my dad hadn't been there, it would have been a little bit different with the paranormal stuff. Like if he was going out to a day job every day. And the few things that did happen, I think one of them at least was happening when he had his own company, where he was going out from time to time. So we had the secret room, which we touched on before. And Jenna, you were laughing at us about how we knocked down this wall in our house where there was a secret room hidden, and decided to make that the kids' playroom. I think you were saying like that is some white people shit. It's like here's this room that we didn't know was there before. We're gonna knock a wall down. Maybe someone like died in there. Maybe it's covered up for a reason. But here, kids, go play. And needless to say, I never played in there. We just kind of wound up storing things in there. It was pretty cool though to have, and I think it messed up the energy on the entire floor, because I would go up there. My mom had her sewing room there, and we had the guest room, and I would go up to write in her sewing room where we had this computer, and I would have to listen to the radio the whole time, and I would like run downstairs whenever I was done. There was just something on that floor.
Yeah.
So that was one of our main things, and that was the same house where we heard marbles rolling across the floor, and then my dad would walk into the room and be like, "What are you guys doing?" And they would stop. So because of that, yeah, paranormal dampener. And I haven't had a lot going on. I've done a little bit of ghost hunting in Montreal because I work with Haunted Montreal. I do their social media right now, and do videos, sort of I take their blogs and make them into video format and tell the stories. So I've done a little bit of ghost hunting with them, and had a bit of an experience in a park with a little girl ghost following me around. And she ran away when we got to the spot where a serial killer was buried. And that's kind of the extent of my experiences. I am looking to have more, and I think that Jenna's actually going to be a part of that at some point in the future, as we will get into. So, Jenna, you have a wealth of paranormal stories, so why not share a couple with us?
Yeah, I kind of wish that I had had some sort of dampener when I was growing up, because our house was like haunted, just with the capital H. Like there, to this day, it's very uncomfortable in there, for a multitude of reasons, and part of those reasons being it's just always had bad energy, bad vibes. So I guess I was kind of the opposite. A lot of my family was very like psychically and spiritually attuned. So they, I feel like, attracted a lot of energy, and most of it was bad and negative. Um, though I do notice like the streetlight flickering thing happens with all of us as
Yeah.
well, and it always has. Like we'll just be walking, and then the light right next to us will just like turn off.
It
So I don't
happens
know if
all
that's
the
you
time.
have high psychic energy, or you're a dampener. I maybe it happens with both. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure. Um, but yeah, no, one of the actually, it's spooky, not necessarily ghosts. Well, partially ghosts in this one. But my younger sibling Jay had a past life that they remembered very, very vividly for the first like 6 years of their life, and told us all the intimate details about. They had a daughter named Lila. They died in a car accident. Like, they were asking like where their kid is. Like, just crazy, crazy, crazy details. We were like, this kid could not be coming up with this stuff. Like, and it was always the same story. And we were just like, that's wild. And the only time it started to stop actually was when they had an experience with a ghost. And so there was my brother's bedroom. And so it ended up being my room later on. So for context, if you've seen my older videos when I was filming in my childhood home, I literally was like filming in the same corner some of the times. So there's a closet corner, and back in the day, it was like more like used for storage, not actually for clothes, because it was my
Mm.
brother's room at the time. And so, this is my sibling is still having past life experiences, memories, telling us about it, and this is around the age that it stopped. Was we're looking around for them, we're like, Jay, where are you? Like, we cannot find this child, right? And they're like 6 years old, so they should not be like alone, unable to find them. And we end up finding them
Mm-mm.
in my brother's room, which he usually like had locked, and he didn't really let anybody in. And we find them in there, and we're like, Jay, and they're not answering. They're just standing facing the wall with like 3 feet between them and the wall with their back turned. And we're like, Jay, like, what are you doing? And so I think it was my aunt who found them and started calling everybody in. Like, they're not responding to me. Like, we were worried something medical was like wrong with them, because they were a very
Mm-hmm.
sickly child as well, which I
Mm.
think probably put them closer to, the edge of life and death, because they were sick
Yeah.
from such a young age, and continue to be, disabled and chronically ill and things like that. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that helps them with those things,
Yeah,
in
definitely.
some strange way. And so we all are like in the room. It's not a very big room, so it's like stuffed with people, right? It's like my parents, my grandfather, my aunt, me, my brother. Like, we're all crammed in this room, keeping a good 5 feet distance between the girl facing the wall, with like there's a single light on, just illuminating them and casting their shadow on the wall, like horror movie status. I'm like,
Yeah, I'm picturing
they're six
this.
years old. They haven't even seen a horror movie. They're 6 years old. Like, what are they trying to freak us out, right? And all of a sudden, you start seeing them reaching their hand out, trying to touch the wall. There's nothing there. Not even their own shadow is on this part of the wall. It's just darkness, right?
Mm.
And so they reach out and they yank their hand back, and they start giggling, right? And they reach out, and
Mm.
their hand shaking, and they rip their hand back, and we're like, Jay. And finally, they look around their shoulder, and they look at us, and they're like, what? We're like, uh, you were reaching out and trying to talk to somebody. Who's there, sweetie? And it's like, oh, this is my friend.
Oh
This
no,
is my friend right here.
you never
And
want
so
to hear
we're like,
that.
oh, um, it's an imaginary friend? No, not imaginary. Like, okay, it's great. So my mom tries to go over and like pick them up, but in doing so walks over towards the corner, and then of course my sibling goes, no, you're scaring him away, and we're like, okay,
Uh,
him, okay. And so literally the kid, 6 years old, crouches down, gets on their knees, and starts like beckoning like this, come
oh
out,
my
it's
god.
okay, it's safe to come out, telling the spirit to come out. And we're standing there, we're like, the absolute hell is going on?
Like, is it
So
okay?
eventually, yeah, we're like, is it okay? Are we okay? What's going on? So we're all royally like messed up at this point. It's like midnight. We're freaking out. And so, my sibling eventually says, okay, they're gone now, and starts talking about like this little boy that they were talking to in the corner of the room. And we're like, oh, this is weird. And the thing that we actually, crazy enough, didn't know at the time, is that this boy would keep coming around. And so up until this day, if you look down the hallway where that bedroom is, you will see a dark little shadow that'll peek its head around the corner.
Oh.
And on top of that, you'll actually, in the living room of that house, I used to, like, I'm a night writer, so I would always stay up really late. And so I would write either in the living room, or write either in the dining room or in the kitchen. And so that was all attached in one, like, big room to the living room. And we had, like, a big, like, L-shaped couch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was this one specific couch that happened, like, years later when I was in high school and college. I think we still have it right now, actually. And so it was years later that this started happening. But I would start to look out the archway from, like, the kitchen into the dining room and into the living room where the couch is, and I'd see a dark shadow jumping on the couch. And I would hear the couch moving like someone was jumping on it. And I would yell at my siblings, like, don't jump on the couch. Why aren't you in bed? And I'd go out there and not a soul would be there. And I'd be like, okay, so this is the ghost boy again.
Mm-hmm.
I know, again, what's the craziest part of all of this is that when we found out it was a little boy,
Mm-hmm.
we did not know that we had an older brother who passed away when he was 6 years old. The same
Oh.
age that my sibling was when they
Oh,
saw him.
wow.
So my dad, though, he of course knew because it was his son who had
Mm.
passed away before he ever met my mom, and he hadn't told us yet. So we were
Hmm.
constantly seeing the little boy, and then afterwards when we were a bit older, they told us, that's your brother Billy. And we were
Oh
like,
my God.
oh! So every time I go in there and I see a little shadow, I'm like, hey bro, what's up? Like,
Wow.
it's been so long. It was so creepy, but now I'm just like, okay, no, that's my bro. Like,
That's
so it's
that's
casual now.
kind it's kind of wholesome.
Yeah, it's wholesome now, but when you're a kid and you don't even know that, like, you had a brother in the first place who, like, was older
Yeah.
and died, you're like, that's strange. And
Yeah.
then for him to show up at the same time when my youngest sibling, not my youngest sibling now, but they were my youngest at the time,
Mm.
was the
Mhm.
same age that they passed away, is
Mhm.
weird.
Yeah.
So,
And so
yeah.
your parents are still in that house, like they haven't
Yeah, my
moved.
mom still lives there. My dad
Oh,
passed
your
away
mom.
when I was in high
Oh,
school.
yes.
So, yeah.
So,
But
okay.
that connected is crazy is that my dad actually passed away before my youngest sister turned 6.
Mhm.
So a couple months before. So it's 6, 6, 6.
Oh my God. How, have you seen any other ghostly presences appear in the house since that happened?
Oh, yes. There
Okay.
was connected
Right.
to that actually is that there's a dark hallway, and like you were saying, like, oh, the vibes upstairs were off kind of thing. The
Yeah.
vibes in this hallway were always off.
Like you
So
can
I don't remember.
feel it.
Yeah. So there's, we were a big family of like 10 plus people with one bathroom.
Mm.
It was a travesty. But this
Oh my
bathroom was
God.
at the end of this long hallway. My brother's bedroom was attached to that hallway, right? And mind you, me and my siblings have quite a few years between us. So my oldest brother's in his 30s. I'm just turned 26. Uh, the sibling who had saw the ghost boy is now 23. And then
Mm.
my youngest sibling is 15. So there's a pretty
Okay.
big gap between us, but from the ages of, like, since we could walk up until like 14 years old, sometimes even teenagers, we all would run down that hallway. And we, like, would not stay in that hallway. We didn't like to wait in that hallway. Like, if someone had to
Mm.
use was like in the restroom and we were waiting for it, we'd run down there, knock on the door, and then run back down the hallway. Like, we didn't want to be down there. And it's also where the
Yeah.
entrance to the attic is.
Okay.
And the attic has bad vibes. So
Yeah.
like, we've stuck our head up there and just seen like piles of weird random things and bones and been like,
Mm. Oh,
we're not doing that. We're
what?
gonna pretend we didn't see it.
What?
we're, gonna, we're gonna be like, we didn't see it. There's like legit like piles of like clothes and like bones and things, because we
Bones.
had like like legit bones up there, like of like small animals and stuff, like,
Okay.
because we had a lot of cats throughout the years who would like go hunting, so we think they
Okay.
would bring stuff up there. But that's like, we also could have just had a squatter who just was performing rituals at some point, who knows, and they could have just been living in our attic. That would honestly
And
explain a
you
lot of things.
like your mom hasn't like gone up to the attic to use it or anything. It just
We don't talk about the attic, we don't go in the attic, we don't it's like it exists, but
Oh
we
my
pretend that
god.
it doesn't because it freaks all of us out so much. And then it
Okay.
really sucks because my youngest sibling now has this room, but it used to be the other sibling's room, and then before that it was my grandparents' room, right? My grandparents, mind you, my
Hmm.
grandfather died in this room. And so it right
Okay.
now it's always had a drop ceiling because they built it. I don't even think you're supposed to have
Hmm.
drop ceilings in a residential in a bedroom, but they do. And
Yeah.
so the
Yeah.
panels will like fall out and then open up to the attic. And so you'll just hear like the cats in the attic fighting with each other, and then you'll just like they'll make the panels drop because they're fighting, and then they'll just blow like cold wind in. So you're like, oh, is that a ghost or is it the panel in the ceiling falling? Like, if you go on my siblings' TikTok, literally there's tons of TikToks they made in that room where they're just like have the camera facing down and they'll point upwards and there'll be a cat looking at them from in one of the holes in the ceiling and be like, there you
Okay.
go.
We have to do an investigation at this house. Like that's where we should go. We're gonna
Yeah,
do an
that's
investigation. That seems to be the spot.
it's a wild that whole like area is just bad vibes. It's right on the border of what we locally call P Town.
Hmm.
So it's not a good neighborhood. The street behind ours used to be called Shotgun Alley,
Mm.
and there was actually a YouTuber who I went to high school with who got pretty big. He had a few million subscribers back in the day when he was at high school with me.
Hmm.
And he went to do pranks, and he was a prankster, and he went
Oh
down
yeah.
that street, tried to pull like one of those things where he's masked and he runs up to someone with like a fake chainsaw, and he had a gun pulled on him by some of the Crips. The Crips live there.
Brilliant.
So yeah,
Brilliant
when I
idea.
was when I was younger, he literally almost died on film, and then he got tons of views for it, and then he stopped doing it for whatever reason. Um, I was like, you
Maybe
made your
almost
money and,
dying.
and left, probably. But I don't. He thought it was like a flex. He mentioned it in school. He was like, "Yeah, almost died." I was like, "You did. I know that area. You
Oh.
you really really did." So yeah, the area's always had bad vibes. I've known several people who've been like injured, hit, run over, like mugged, things like that. And then like when I
Mm.
was a kid though, and we would go around the street, we had neighbors who were part of like their family was connected to the Mexican mafia, I guess. So they were like, "We'll protect you.
Oh
You
yeah.
can freely go on the streets." And so that was the only time I'd run around would be with them, in like the street and stuff.
Hmm.
Otherwise, like I couldn't even go in the front yard. And all the time, I'd be running around late at night with these other kids, and there'd just be like shadow people, just like the up and down the entire street. I would see them everywhere. I used to be like way more connected, and I cut myself off because I was scaring myself too much. But there'd be like shadow people
Yeah.
everywhere, like in the trees, like crawling like this, like on the ground, like the whole nine yards.
Mm.
And I was like, am I just crazy? Or is this something real? And my sibling, when they were old enough and they started running around the streets with me, I'd be like, do you ever see stuff that like is weird? And she's like, oh, you mean like the shadow people? It's like,
Oh no.
yeah. Um, where do you see them? Oh, there's one right there on the like by the mailbox. And I'd be like, oh, great, because that's exactly where I see it too. That's fun. Thanks
That's
for
that's so interesting.
confirming all of my fears.
Well, I did an interview recently with these two sisters who run a like paranormal investigation company in Canada with their best friend, and they have like a TV show and stuff, so I got to do this little interview, which was really fun, and I'm hoping to talk to them again soon. But it just reminds me of them because one's like a little bit older and she was seeing things, and as the younger one aged up and they would be playing and stuff, she would play a game called Spot the Spirit with her. And just to sort of reassure herself, because they both had it, like they could both see, and she'd be like, "Oh, do you see something in here right now?" And then her little sister would be like, "Oh yeah, I see that thing over there." And she'd be like, "Okay, yeah, we both see it." And the friend would watch this, and then they would go on to start this company. And I wonder if
Wow.
there's some sort of sibling connection, especially with your sibling spirit as well. I think that there's a strong bond there.
Yeah, I think so. I've never actually heard anybody else trying and successfully doing that before, so that's crazy, especially and then you just talked to them and I just told you that story. That's wild. That's
Yeah.
really interesting because we would do that like all the
I
time.
I can send you the
And
video.
okay, yeah, please do. I can't wait to watch that. We'll leave it linked below too. Shout out to Holly's
Yes,
many
definitely.
projects. Yeah, that's wild. um, but yeah, last story for me connected to this though is that there is like a shadow person who like is in that house too. And around this is what I was getting to.
Mhm.
I went on a wild tangent though. But in that hallway though, you would see a little ghost boy, and above him you would see like a shadow person who was much larger peek around too, and sometimes like grab the
Oh.
boy and like drag him back into the hallway. And so I don't know what that's about.
Uh,
And I don't like that vibe, especially for poor Billy. Um, so yeah, I've
mhm.
always seen those two. And it's nice when it's just Billy. It's like fine vibes, but then the occasional time when there's the bigger shadow, because usually like that's the crazy part about that too is that you'll see them like overlap. So you'll see like where Billy is, and then you'll see the bigger shadow, and you can tell the difference, which normally with
Mhm.
shadows you wouldn't be able to really do, especially in like a dark hallway. This hallway literally has no
Yeah.
light. There's the lights in the rooms, but there's no above light. Like it broke when I was a kid, and it just we
Right.
literally like ended up patching it up, like the ceiling, because where the wiring was, because it just didn't work. We wouldn't want to have to call an electrician to like fix it,
Mm.
so we're like, it's fine. We don't spend that much time there anyways. We'll just leave it a dark abyss. Um, and so
It's
there's no light,
it's already
and you can some
scary. Let's just make it dark all the time.
let's just make it worse. Yeah. Um, Fun. But yeah, it's always been weird and wild that you could tell where one shadow started and the other stopped there too, because in no other situation can you do that.
Mhm. That does seem to be a thing because I watch Mr. Ballin sometimes, and he tells strange stories, and there seems to be a pattern with these like more innocent spirits being overshadowed by something dark, and you usually find out that there's this whole like back and forth in whatever little paranormal community you have going on in a household. There's like a whole afterlife drama occurring, some of it darker than other aspects.
Yeah, there's gotta be. 'Cause, like I had a lot of family when I was younger who passed away like in succession to each other. And like my grandfather died in that house. He died like 2 months after my uncle died. And then like my mother's best friend in high school was murdered by a serial killer. And so
Oh,
they actually just caught him last
okay.
year because that was unsolved until last year.
Oh my
So
god.
it was it was crazy. Yeah, I was like, and then no one told me either. I found out like only a couple months ago. I was like, this is like one of the biggest things I've ever heard of in my life that's related to us, and you're no one told me. I've heard about this story for years, and no
Wow.
one informed me. I was like, that's fucking rude. So I was very happy they finally caught her killer and put him in jail. But just general not great vibes. Like my whole family on my mother's side, because it's my mother's family's house. They were just a lot of them were just into sketchy shit, and it was a sketchy area. And a lot of them were into drugs and alcohol and all those things, and that just breeds a lot of really weird vibes. And they were all very spiritual too, but they like I feel like they didn't know what they were doing, so they just welcomed stuff in that they shouldn't have. Like playing with Ouija
Right.
boards and not closing it. You know, all these messed up
Hmm.
things that they just shouldn't have been doing. So it just made a nice hot pot of spiritual
Yeah.
fuckery, you can call it. That you, for some reason, thought it was okay
Yes.
to bring children into, but I digress. But I want to hear about your stories
Hmm.
from your area
Yeah, I'm
because I love Canada and your storytelling abilities. So, and spooky. So, combined three of my favorite things.
well, thank you. Yeah, I decided that I would take a couple of these stories, and I might sort of pause throughout because now that I'm looking at the way I wrote them, they are a little bit long. And these are going to be in a like classic storytelling format. Um yes. I'm going to start with the Winnipeg one because it's It's longer, so I think it's better to start off with that one. And I also have a little bit of a personal connection to it, which is kind of fun. And this it ties back to quite a lot of things. Like it touches on a lot of interesting areas. So I think that you will like it, and everyone listening will like it as well. So this is the story of Hamilton House. Yes. The story of Hamilton House. In the early decades of the last century, in the heart of Winnipeg, there lived a prominent doctor with a peculiar obsession. Dr. T.G. Hamilton. This was a man who was on a quest to bridge the gap between the living and the dead, and his extraordinary story would unfold within the walls of his grand home on Henderson Highway, which is not so grand anymore. It's not a very grand location. If you go by, it's a, a little bit, run down and disturbing, and just kind of like this empty space with this house there. I remember driving by it at night, and just when we talk about energy, energy. So, Dr. Hamilton's residence was no ordinary home. It was, in fact, a ghost laboratory. So, hidden away within the confines of this house were secrets that would captivate the imagination of many. The laboratory boasted a locked room, an open cabinet, and an array of more than a dozen state-of-the-art cameras. But it wasn't just the curious equipment that made Dr. Hamilton's home remarkable, it was the guest list that truly astounded. Among those who crossed the threshold of this peculiar place were none other than Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the brilliant mind behind Sherlock Holmes, a Nobel Prize winning scientist, and even a former Canadian Prime Minister. The rituals conducted in Dr. Hamilton's home were no small matter. Every medium and guest who entered was subject to thorough searches and required to sign witness statements before they departed his home. Dr. Hamilton's wife, Lillian, held the key to the locked room around her neck, guarding its mysteries with great diligence. It all began as a sad mission to reconnect with the Hamilton's son Arthur, who had tragically succumbed to the Spanish flu at the age of 3 in 1919. The Hamiltons' grief was immeasurable, yeah, and their desire to communicate with the departed became an all consuming passion. So, they held these events called home circles, which gained international recognition and fame. And as they did this, their mission evolved. Serena Kashavji, an art historian, and I'm probably pronouncing that last name wrong, but she's a historian from the University of Winnipeg who extensively studied the Hamiltons. She would later reveal that their project shifted from a personal quest to a scientific endeavor. They were determined to prove through rigorous experimentation that ghosts were real and that communications with them was possible. So Shelley Sweeney, the head archivist at the U of M, University of Manitoba Archives, believed that Dr. Hamilton and those like him were genuine believers. She noted that during the era, many shared the belief in life after death, and the Hamiltons were merely attempting to open a door, if only a crack, to discover how their loved ones were faring in the spirit world. The enigmatic ectoplasm was central to their investigations. I don't know if you've ever seen photos of this, but it's a ghostly substance, white and eerie, believed to be the tangible form of spirits. Dr. Hamilton's camera captured these strange masses emerging from the medium's faces, like through their nose and stuff, a phenomenon visible only in the haunting photographs taken during the seances, which you can actually see if you look them up. Dr. Hamilton, his Dr. Hamilton's full name was Thomas Glendenning Hamilton, and he had a really interesting journey leading up to these experiments. Born in Agincourt, Ontario in 1873 to Scottish parents, he eventually settled in Winnipeg after the loss of his father and sister. He pursued a medical career, married Lillian Forrester, a nurse from Emerson, Manitoba, and became a respected physician and community leader. His contributions extended beyond medicine as he served as a deacon in his local church, presided over the Manitoba Medical Association, and held various positions in the Manitoba legislature and the Canadian Medical Association. But it was in 1918, through the introduction of a professor friend, that Dr. Hamilton's life took this supernatural turn. He was initiated into the world of the paranormal and spiritualism, which was a movement that had reached its zenith in the late 1800s and early 20th century. You'll see a lot of really interesting stuff around that in Montreal as well, and a lot surrounding Arthur Conan Doyle. This tragedy that would profoundly shape Dr. Hamilton's quest occurred in the following year when his son fell victim to the deadly flu pandemic that swept across the Western world. We can relate these days once again. The doctor's the doctor's inability to save his own flesh and blood haunted him deeply, intensifying his yearning to make contact with the spirit realm. The family's interest in the paranormal burgeoned, and by the late 1920s, TG and Lillian had embarked on a series of experiments. Elizabeth Poole, their children's nanny and a medium, joined their endeavors. Initially, they focused on telekinesis, the remote movement of objects, but their pursuits soon evolved into what we know as the home circles or seances, and two additional mediums, Mary Marshall and Susan Marshall, joined their ranks, taking on the names Dawn and Mercedes. It was during these seances, as documented by Dr. Hamilton, that they began to witness ectoplasmic manifestations, those strange masses emerging from their faces. Their commitment to scientific rigor was unwavering. To ensure their experiments were conducted meticulously, they invited esteemed guests, including the celebrated Winnipeg doctor Bruce Chown and the prominent lawyer Isaac Pitt Blatto. And I think there is still Pitt Blatto law offices in Winnipeg.
Cool.
As Dr. Hamilton's fame spread, so did his guest list, with luminaries like former Prime Minister William Lyon Mackenzie King, Nobel Prize-winning physiologist Charles Richet, and the creator of Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, all attending their extraordinary gatherings. After Conan Doyle's own passing, his wife returned through the medium to converse with him. It's worth noting that neither the mediums nor Dr. Hamilton were financially compensated for their work, indicating the sincerity of their belief. So reports of the paranormal phenomena continued and were, thought of as very accurate because of this lack of money exchanging hands. And it went on for a decade, even after Dr. Hamilton's passing in 1935. But there was some doubt at that point on the theory that Lillian had maybe manipulated the ectoplasm images to console her grieving husband about their son. During the early 1900s, the world was awash in grief. The First World War had claimed the lives of around 60,000 Canadians, and the Spanish influenza pandemic in 1918 and 1919 had taken thousands more. People worldwide sought the solace in the prospect of reconnecting with their departed loved ones. Dr. Hamilton's endeavors were part of an international resurgence of Western spiritualism. He delivered over 80 talks across North America and Europe, supported by the efforts of several other paranormal scientists, many of whom had backgrounds in medicine. The dawn of modern photographic technology played a pivotal role in these pursuits. Cameras were regarded as impartial observers, and the mass development of photographic technology combined with the advent of improved flashbulbs coincided perfectly with the spiritualism revival. Dr. Hamilton believed that his photographs constituted undeniable evidence of materializations, offering the scientific community a glimpse into the world of spirits. Following his death, his wife continued the experiments until 1945, and while the tide of public opinion had begun to turn against them, the reasons for the experiments winding down remained unclear. Moreover, whether the Hamiltons found genuine comfort in their work remained a mystery. Regardless of one's beliefs in the authenticity of their work, one truth remained undeniable. The Hamilton story was a global phenomenon, a testament to humanity's enduring fascination with the unknown, transcending time and place.
That is cool as fuck.
Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
I love story time with Holly. Spooky story time with Holly.
I think that's like one of the best Winnipeg things, hands down.
Yeah. I find that really fascinating for a really random personal reason, that it's on a Henderson highway and my dad's last name was Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
And so while you were telling the story,
the strange connections continue.
Yeah, while you were telling the story, I was looking it up, and apparently it's named after a pioneer named, let me see, Samuel Robert Henderson. So I'm gonna have to see whether or not he's related to the Hendersons who ended up
Mm.
adopting my father and gave him his last name, because I know his family, the Hendersons, were really big in the what was it, Calgary area, and some of them were politicians and stuff. So there might be a connection there.
Oh yeah.
But if not, it's just a little funny anecdote.
Oh,
But
very
it's
cool.
crazy too, remembering that I had, you know, books as a child that had those pictures of ectoplasm on them, and like I never knew exactly where they were from, or like, you know, the origins of the photos and how they came to be and stuff. And the fact that like that's right where you are is really, really cool. It's a, you know, something really cool and local that is a story that still traveled all the way over here when I was a kid.
Yeah, and it's I had this kind of personal introduction to it as well because we have a family friend. His name is Dean Gunnerson, and he's an escape artist. And Houdini was kind of drawn into spiritualism, and he was one of those people, like, he wanted to believe, but he was like, he didn't believe, and he had a secret code with his wife that, you know, he was going to tell her from the afterlife if it was real, and they had, like, you know, vice versa, they were going to come back and tell the other person if there was life after death. And he got drawn into that. So there was a play in Winnipeg where they talked about Hamilton House, and it was all about the spiritualism and stuff. And Dean came, and he was there. I think he played Houdini. I was younger. I have to remember this properly, but it was so cool. And my aunt did all these ectoplasm paintings to have on sale there. So I have very fond memories of this whole Hamilton House story.
That's so funny, and that's so like honestly cute that we were both kids around the same time. You had your aunt like painting pictures of the ectoplasm. I was a kid in California looking at the pictures in like one of the first books I got from the Scholastic Book Fair, like ever.
Yeah. Oh, the
That's
best. The
adorable.
best. I
We're
want to go to a
connected through
Scholastic Book
ectoplasm.
Fair. I miss it so much.
Oh,
Yes.
apparently they're not as cool. Like apparently the Scholastic Book Fairs are like not as good as they used to be. I just heard a parent complaining about it.
That's so sad. They were magical. It was like the best time ever whenever those happened.
Yeah, I heard it's mostly because like they have celebrity books now rather than like a wide, you know, amount of different kinds of books. It's mostly just like celebrity books and coloring books.
Oh,
Yeah, at least the
that's
one
so
I saw.
sad. I was looking, there was some sort of event in, I think it's in Ontario. It was across Canada. It was sort of a, they were calling it a book crawl instead of a pub crawl, and you went to different bookstores, and they were trying to make it like Scholastic vibes at each store. And I thought, oh, that would be so cool if they actually like made it as good as it used to be at each store. I would completely, like, 100% go to that.
Oh, I would go even if it was like 10% of what it used to be.
Yeah, yeah, true. Even a little bit would be great.
Yeah, just the nostalgia. It's worth it.
Hmm.
Alrighty.
So,
Let me
uh,
think.
yeah,
Yeah, let me
moving
think. What's
moving
another
back to
story?
the real paranormal.
Hey, the ectoplasm could be real. Looks kind of, it always kind of looked fake, but I'm very intrigued by it.
Yeah,
You're like, yeah,
it's
maybe.
it's like those it's like those fairy portraits, the little girls who were taking the fairy photos, and it was kind of proof they were wrong. It's one of those things that I want to believe, like I'm gonna willfully believe.
Yeah, it's hilarious that you mentioned that too, because in that same book I had the ectoplasm and those fairy photos, and I 100% was like bought in as a child. I was
Okay.
like, these things are real. These are, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but actually, I can tell you about my fairy story.
Oh yeah.
Actually, because this one's fucking wild. So as a child, obviously, I believed in the fairy photos. I believed like, you know, in everything because you're a kid. But then I was getting older, I was like, nah, fairies aren't real. Like, you know, I still believed in like ghosts because I had seen them, aliens because like scientifically made more sense. And then I was like other things like that, like cryptids and other things like that I wasn't really into. As I got older, I was more into cryptids and like the sense of like Bigfoot and like you know, Jersey Devil, things like that, right? That just like they could biologically be an actual creature that we're just mistaking for something else, or it could be mutated, or it could be you know, like a crossbreed, something scientifically altered. You know, I think that's what a lot of cryptids could very much be, like the chupacabra. But specifically, I was still like things I wouldn't really believe in would be like probably like mermaids,
Mhm.
and fairies, right? So I was like, I don't believe in those things. And now I ever since this happened, I completely don't know what I believe. But yeah, so for context to this, did not believe in fairies. I'm still in disbelief that I say now that I might believe in fairies because it just doesn't. It's like the one thing that I'm just like, I don't think it's a thing. But then I saw it and I've never been the same. So for context, I hesitate to say exactly what town this is because I still live relatively close to it and I don't want to like
Mm.
dox myself. But there is a really creepy, mysterious town that I live next
Yeah.
to that, you know, it's considered a more wealthy area. It's, you know, but it has like a lot of dark secrets in it, and I could talk about a couple of those as well. Um, but one of them is called a Green Mist Road, and it used to glow green. Like my mother went there when she was in high school, and she would literally see the hills start to glow green. And I would go to this park and
Oh, that's
visit
so
it when I was
cool.
older. Yeah, I didn't know about this like story or anything. I just thought it was a cool park in an area that I liked, and I ended up living really close to it. And so at our old apartment, and so you know, I visited on occasion. We usually go at night, and it would be on a hill, and we'd overlook, and you know, we'd see all the twinkling lights of the whole, you know, like cities and surrounding areas and stuff. And it's a nice green little peaceful area, nice and windy, nice and cold. You know, it's really cool. And then I saw it glow green one night, and I was like, oh, that's like a little weird. Is that like a trick of the eye kind of thing? And I ended up telling my mom about it, and she was like, oh no, that's the Green Mist Road. Like we went, and you know, it was really creepy when we went as we were teenagers in like the 80s and 90s. We went up there all the time and got like drunk and high and watched the the hills start to glow green, you know. And so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, cool, that's the only mysterious thing about this place. And so I go there regularly, and I ended up figuring out that the actual reason scientifically why the hill for a fact glows green is because there's an aerojet facility that's in that area. It's all blocked off by military security and things like that, and it was abandoned a long time ago, but there's still security, so if
Mm.
you go up there they will block you entry. But back
Oh.
in World War II, this used to be where they would do chemical testing, and they would blow up cadavers with chemical weaponry all through these
Oh
hills.
my
And
god.
so it was haunted,
Oh
and
my
that's why it
god.
glowed green for years. It's gorgeous now, and it's a very wealthy
Mhm.
area, but I'm pretty sure one of the reasons it's so wealthy is because all of the houses around there were paid off by the government for being exposed to like Agent Orange and other things like that. So
Yeah.
they have very nice, wealthy. There's like a wedding venue up there now, and people don't know that there's like cows. The cows are just chilling where the dead bodies were blown up. So, and I was like, oh, I've just been chilling at this place where dead bodies have been blown up repeatedly. It's still a lovely park. I go there, but it's already a weird enough area, and so I'm like chilling up there at night in my car looking at the beautiful sunset with my fiance. I'm like, we got some 7-Eleven snacks, we're just talking and hanging out, we got the dog with us, like we're just hanging out having a good time. And then there's these lamp posts, right, that you know, they go up and everything, and they're really big because it's a dark area. There's not really like any other lights around because it's just this one really long street that goes straight up a hill. There's the park there, the wedding venue is beyond it, and then there's like houses on the other side. But other than that, when you look this way, it's all just like the dark hills that sometimes glow green, and the aerojet facility and the old dead bodies, if there's any still there. And so the fact that I still hung out here and I still continue to hang out here knowing that history is crazy to me, but it's really beautiful.
I
Um,
don't know, I would.
we'll go. But
Excellent.
so I'm chilling in the car and everything, right? I got my window rolled down, I'm enjoying the breeze coming through the car, and then the light above is like, I'm like thinking it's flickering because I'm like, I'm used to lights flickering or going out when I go past, so I'm like, oh, not this again, right? But then I start noticing it's
Yeah.
not fully going out, it's something's flying in front of it, and I'm like, is there a
Hmm.
freaking bat? Like, because I started to hear like a flutter, and I'm like, is it a bat? Is it a bird? And I stick my head out the window and I look up, and I'm gobsmacked, jaw to the floor, looking up at this thing. It's like the ugliest thing I've ever seen, and it's definitely not any creature I could tell you the name of, but it was like translucent wings, right? And it was probably about like this yay big, right? So it was kind of big, and it had translucent like gray silvery like gucky looking like wings, and it had like really
Gucky
thin dang,
wings.
like that's the only way, like their wings almost looked like they would stick together if they touched, right? And they
Oh,
had like
okay.
these really
Yeah.
thin like bluish dangling legs with like the tiniest feet on them, right? And then just this like mutated-ish kind of body where it's just super skinny. It looks like a malnourished like child almost, but really, really skinny, really, really thin. I don't really see any like arms, but I'm just seeing the dangling legs and these translucent wings with this like face that is just pointed towards the light. So it's like attracted to the light, flying around it like a giant moth. And I'm like, Steven, telling my fiance, like, look, and he's on the other side, so he can't, like, and he's, like, buckled in still, so he's like, what? And so by the time he's messing around and stuff and he gets out of the car, the thing's already flown away, but I'm like, I was just like this, with my head out the window, staring at it, going, absolutely no fucking way is that a fucking fairy. And one, you don't look like how you did in those pretty pictures when I was a kid, and two, you were so ugly and so creepy looking, and you kind of smell. I to this day, like I don't want to say I believe in fairies, but I saw that. Like ugh, and it was
Yeah,
so
like
nasty and so
what
gross. And I can't think of what that could be because I'm like, okay,
uh,
a moth doesn't have tiny dangling legs. They also probably aren't like a pale translucent blue. It was not a bat because it didn't have bat-shaped wings. It was more like
mm,
dragonfly-esque, but like fat in the middle. Um
mutated bat dragonfly baby.
Something like the only thing I can think of is because my theory most of the time is that cryptids are either mutated or like scientifically altered something kind of creatures that
Mhm,
we
mhm.
or they're just like a species we haven't found yet, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So me thinking about the fact this is next to an aerojet facility that is supposedly closed down and they're government contractors who use chemical weapons, it's not out of
Mm,
the question that maybe it's not actually abandoned and they're doing some sort of experiment on wildlife because there's quite a bit of it out there. It's right next to a state
right.
park. And so maybe this is something that got out, maybe it's something that wasn't supposed to see the light of day. They thought it died because it certainly kind of smelled like it died. Um, but it's probably one of the most like I literally the first episode we talked about my like alien abduction sort of
Mhm.
experience, like alien experience. That is more believable to me than the own story that I saw with my own two eyes. And I believe this story more than I do the aliens because at least the aliens I didn't actually see the UFO, it was just the light. But this I saw that little fucking creature. And I've scoured the internet. I could not find anything that resembles what this thing was. And it's baffled me to this day. And it pisses me off because I was like,
That is
no, I'm going to try and be scientific about my beliefs. I'm trying to, do things that have a little bit more proof I can get behind,
mhm.
but I cannot deny what I
You should
saw.
just, like, run at it, tried to capture it.
No, I was like genuinely like scared. I was like, the hell? And I was like tapping Steven and trying to grab my phone at the same time and like get a photo up and stuff, and it was there for like
Mhm.
a solid minute, but I was like trying not to look away from it because I was trying to follow it with my eyes, like as it was fluttering around this light. But I was also staring directly into
Yeah.
the light, so I was like blinking and I could not see
Yeah, yeah. Like, blinding
until it like
yourself at the
covered the
same
light
time.
and then I could see it better. Yeah. And so I was
Well,
trying to do too much.
maybe people listening to this, someone else will have had a similar experience. We'll put the call out and try to summon the gucky fairy creature back again.
Please, someone tell me someone else has seen this thing because, like, I tried to find if anyone had any cryptid experiences with something like this or described fairies in this way at all, and I could not find it. So I'm genuinely
Hmm.
so confused about it.
We're
Uh,
putting the alert out. Must find
yeah,
strange cryptid fairy thing.
yeah,
That's definitely
and
unique.
yeah, like I would write it in a book, but I don't want to see it like in real
I don't
life. It can be in my imagination. It doesn't get to
I
be
kind of want to
like
see it.
real.
I want to see it.
I really wish I had gotten a picture, like, because like when I say it, like I don't even believe me. So how
Yeah.
are other people gonna believe me?
Well, there's that interesting thing that happens when something strange, does present itself to you, where your brain like actively forgets it. You can like feel your brain going, "No, no. That's not a thing. That didn't
Something like that.
happen. We're going to put that aside. Maybe you'll, logically know that you saw it, but did you really? Let's just put it aside." Like your brain just does that. Because I mean, everything single strange thing I have had happen at the exact same time. I'm like, did it though?
No, there's so many other things that I'm like scientifically I can get behind things like ghosts, I can get behind aliens, I can even like get behind Bigfoot, right?
Hmm, hmm.
But a fucking fairy, that's like some 2-year-old with a coloring book and a big imagination shit.
Well, it doesn't sound like a 2-year old made up that thing you're talking about.
Mm-mm. I couldn't even make up that thing. I wouldn't want to. And I have like
See,
cannibal aliens that I read about, and that was
I
still, ugh.
I want to draw this thing and put it on a shirt. And I feel like that could be our first piece of merch.
Just find it, please, written around it.
Make it like a milk carton.
Have you seen me?
have you have
Okay.
you seen this gucky fairy? Let us know. Would you buy it? I
Okay.
would.
I want to. Okay, we're gonna start Shopify. This is our first
Yeah,
merch item.
gucky fairy.
Cookie Fairy.
Is that is
I
that our fan base? The gucky fairy gang?
Cookie Fairy. Okay. Please don't make that stick. Please don't make that stick. The great straight forget that it happened.
I've put it out into the universe.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my
I
god.
I can't wait for this. I'm gonna sit you down. I'm gonna
I'm
go into like crime scene details and you can do like a crime scene sketch. Or what is it called? Fuck, a specific
Oh
name for
yeah.
it. Yeah, like the people who sketch out the faces of criminals from witnesses memory, those people. I forgot what they're called.
Oh yeah.
Um we're
Yeah.
both blanking on it. Summon the name.
Yep.
Forensic?
Um
No. Sketch artist. I'm gonna have you sit down and be my sketch artist.
I think it is just forensic artist, like forensic sketch artist, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna do that and I'll give you all the gory details of
Excellent.
it.
Yet. Yes, we are gonna do that. 100%. Yeah. I I I know, me either. It's gonna be the best thing ever. on on that note, I will take us back to a human story, and then a Montreal story. This one's a bit shorter and a little bit more like classic spooky, I think. And then you can sort of wind us up with one more real life experience. This one, as I've mentioned, I work for Haunted Montreal, and there are a lot of ghost stories in Montreal. Over 400 recorded ghost stories at this time. Uh, it's yeah, it's to the point where when my partner and I walk around the city, I'll be like, "So that's the story about that thing." And did you know there's a haunted grave, like a secret graveyard here? And that's that thing. And this place happened here. He's like, "Look, everything's haunted." Like, yeah, you're right. Like, that's just how it is. But we have two very famous ghost stories, like the two biggest ones. One is Simon McTavish, which I will just tell you the highlight of it because that's the most interesting part, I think, is that people have seen this. He used to be like a mansion owner, very wealthy, had a mansion on the mountain. Like his crypt is on the mountain. You can walk to it to this day. People have seen his ghost tobogganing down the mountain. So uh, that's the unique ghost of Simon McTavish. There's pictures of like drawings of it. It's pretty funny. This wealthy landowner tobogganing down the mountain, dead.
That's my life
But
goal.
my yeah, I mean
I
that's what
too
you do
wish to
in
be a
Canada. You
wealthy
die,
landowner
you
ghost.
yeah. Yeah, and when you're in Canada and you're dead, what else are you gonna do other than like toboggan down the mountain? Come on.
What happens in Canada stays dead in Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
A second shirt.
Yeah, I was thinking we're coming up with so many things in this episode.
I'm gonna have a whole merch
But
collection.
oh yeah,
Zero
100%.
views, only merch.
Excellent. This ghost is Mary Gallagher, and the cool thing about her is that you can see her at a specific time and place every few years. I will tell you about it. So, in the heart of Montreal's Griffintown, where rapid gentrification is reshaping the neighborhood's identity, lies a corner shrouded in an eerie and unsettling history. This is the chilling tale of Mary Gallagher, a story that transcends time like our last and lingers like her very ghostly presence. Back in the days when Griffintown was a notorious shanty town, the intersection of William and Murray Streets was a place to be feared. It was said that every 7 years, on the anniversary of her brutal murder in 1879, Mary Gallagher's ghost would return to this very spot. The locals knew it well, and they had their own way of dealing with her restless spirit. Children would leave candy and treats at the corner, hoping to placate the spirit of Mary Gallagher. They'd set their offerings and then dash away, fearing her wrath. Parents, clever as ever, would exploit the legend of Headless Mary to keep their children in line. Behave or Mary will get you, they'd say, and suddenly chores were done and curfews were obeyed. Griffintown, with its turbulent history, serves as the perfect backdrop for Montreal's most infamous ghost story. It's a place where struggle and hardship have definitely left their mark for centuries. So we'll travel back in time to uncover the gruesome origins of this haunting tale. The story begins on a warm June day in 1879 during St. John Baptiste Day, a time when Montreal buzzed with celebration. For those unfamiliar, St. John Baptiste Day, or we just call it Saint Jean, the greeting is Bon Saint Jean. It happens a week before Canada Day, and in Quebec, it's a much bigger deal to the point where on Canada Day, we have something called Moving Day. Everyone moves July 1st. So you don't really celebrate anything. So everyone celebrates the weekend before on Saint Jean, and then like the whole city is moving on the first. It's mental. So during this holiday in 1879, two women, Mary Gallagher, age 38, and her friend Susie Kennedy, age 26, both prostitutes from Griffintown, embarked on a fateful journey in search of clients. Their path led them to a chance encounter with a strapping dock worker named Michael Flanagan, a man seeking companionship. As the three spent the afternoon together, a spark ignited between Mary and Michael, leaving Susie envious and consumed by rage. Mary's allure proved irresistible to Michael, and they found themselves in a rundown flophouse, leaving Susie to return home alone. It's said that Susie was frustrated because Mary was older than her, and usually that gave her the pick of clients. 2 days later, with the effects of alcohol still lingering, Mary and Michael made their way to Susie's apartment. The events that unfolded within those walls would send shockwaves through Griffintown. Around noon, a thunderous bang reverberated through the building, followed by the sickening sound of chopping. Soon after, Mrs. Troy, the woman residing beneath Mary and Susie, felt warm, sticky drops of something falling into her hair. It didn't take long for her to realize that it was blood, and she became gripped with terror. Mrs. Troy, then, and this is my favorite part, she sent her 10-year-old son upstairs to investigate. Blood falling from the ceiling? Go up there. So he, of course, returned in a state of shock, his face drained of color, exclaiming, "Mummy, there's a lady up there with her head off." The police were summoned, but their delayed response allowed gruesome events to unfold. When they finally arrived, a certain scene awaited them. Mary Gallagher's lifeless body lay there, brutally mutilated with 14 savage blows. Her right hand had been severed at the wrist. Her decapitated head stared blankly from an ash bucket near the stove. Susie, drenched in blood, was found in her bed alongside a bloodied axe concealed in a nearby box. She was promptly arrested. The ensuing trial would take an interesting turn. Susie was found guilty of murder and sentenced to hang by the neck until dead. However, Michael Flanagan, who claimed amnesia due to alcohol, walked away a free man due to a lack of conclusive evidence. The verdict left society in disbelief, struggling to accept that a woman could commit such a violent act. In another strange twist of fate, the day originally designated for Susie's execution, December 5th, 1879, witnessed Michael Flanagan's watery demise as he fell through the ice while working on the Wellington Basin. Many speculated that the vengeful spirit of Mary Gallagher had intervened, pushing him to his tragic end. Susie, on the other hand, saw her death sentence commuted to a life of incarceration in Kingston Penitentiary. She spent 11 long years in solitary confinement, passing the time by knitting and sewing for the prison. Her health deteriorated and she succumbed to pulmonary tuberculosis in July of 1890. Locals, including the storyteller Denis Delaney, claim to have encountered her ghost on multiple occasions. In 1937, uh, in 1937, as a young boy of 4, he alleged that Mary took a blanket from his bed. In 1956, he crossed paths with Mary on Gallery Square, where she guided him to unearth her necklace buried by a tree. Sightings of her continued over the years, perpetuating a legacy of haunting encounters. Masses were held in her memory by Father Tom McEntee, who initiated the tradition on the evening of June 26th, just before her anniversary. The tradition continued until 2005, with a reading room at Concordia University, then named in his honor when he passed away. In 2019, on the 140th anniversary of Mary Gallagher's murder, Haunted Montreal and other groups organized events to commemorate her. Yet, efforts to establish a Mary Gallagher Park on the site have yet to gain traction in our area with municipal politicians. As Mary Gallagher's story endures through generations, her ghostly presence continues to haunt the corner of William and Murray Streets. It's a ghost story that refuses to fade, forever etched in the history of Montreal's most haunted neighborhood of Griffintown. And if you happen to be in Montreal, June 2026, be sure to take a look yourself.
So I know when I'm visiting Montreal
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
2026.
Yes, June 2026.
All I gotta say is Mary, I'm glad you killed him. He probably had something
Yeah.
to do with it.
Oh yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Alcohol related amnesia.
Convenient.
Yeah.
After 2 days still.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't believe it.
Yeah, that's too convenient. Especially with
Yeah.
something like that, I don't think you could forget it, even with alcohol. Just seeing
No.
a person's head chopped off,
Yeah.
it's a bit much.
Justice for Susie Kennedy.
Oh, is her name Susie, not Mary? My bad.
Oh no, well, but Mary was probably the one who pushed him through the ice.
Oh,
Yeah.
Susie was the other one.
Yeah, Susie's the one who took the fall, so justice for Susie.
Yeah, I get all like those names that are like really basic mixed up in my head all the time.
Yeah.
Michael,
So that's yeah,
Nick,
Michael, Susie, and Mary.
yeah, all really basic names. I'm really down with it.
I love that ghost story. I unfortunately missed when she came out last time, but I am definitely going to be there on the in 2026 when she comes back.
Nice. Does people have photos if like it's that timely?
No, I've only heard word of mouth because the founder of Haunted Montreal, he was there having a vigil, and he said that he saw her. The guy who runs our investigations, he was also there, and he saw her. So everyone I've talked to who was there said they saw her, but there was no image of it.
Okay, so when we go in 2026,
Hmm.
2020,
2026,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We're gonna have like all the investigation stuff out, all the photos, drones, 9 yards.
Oh yeah, I'll have
I
my
want a
whole
picture. I want a
kit.
video.
I'll have my
Yeah,
whole kit with me. We'll
like
get like
come
a
out, come out.
recording. We'll talk to her. Come on, Mary, we want to do an interview.
Instead of like interview with a vampire, it's interviews interview with a ghost.
Exactly.
The one more local story that I have over here, rather than a personal one, is called Black Star Canyon. It's also known as Santiago Canyon. It is in like the Orange County area, so it's in my general area. I haven't been to it yet, but I hope to be very soon in probably December and do a little bit of filming and stuff. So
Yes.
look out for that. But yeah, I only heard about this recently from my friend who drove through there and just had a weird feeling. So he looked it up online and apparently found out it's super duper haunted. There are accidents that happen there all the time, even on like perfectly straight roads. And a lot of people think that it originated with the massacre of an indigenous tribe in the area. But if you know of indigenous legend, then you also typically know the things that come along with messing with indigenous tribes is a lot of bad energy and a lot of bad cryptids and things like that I do believe in.
Oh yeah.
I don't like to say their names,
Yep.
but if you know cryptids and creatures and things, then just SK, and I call them the W boys. They eat flesh. They aren't aren't fun to be around. And they inspired a lot of creepy things in my own books. But yeah, supposedly they're there. The Lady of the Lake is also supposedly in that same area. There used to be a turned over school bus, and a bunch of kids may or may not have died at this at this abandoned and turned over school bus that was there for a long, long time. And just in general, it's supposed to have like just weird, dark vibes, shadow people, ghosts, like everything seems to be congregated around this one valley. I think there's supposed to be a lot of limestone there too, so that can sometimes
Mm.
increase the likelihood of spiritual things happening. It's in a valley, it's got a lake with a river, so you'd think it'd be
It's a
beautiful, but a
portal.
lot of people, yeah, because it's a portal. People just don't really go there. Like I've lived in this general area my entire life. I've never heard anyone talk about it. It's right next to a national park. You think I would know people who go there all the time, and people just don't go there.
Hmm.
And I never even realized it was there because nobody wants to go there and no one likes staying there, and that would be why. So now I know, and now we'll experience it for ourselves at some point. And I'm excited because I've heard so much about it, and the people who are in that area know about it, and just it seems like it hasn't gotten out very far past that. But if it is as
Hmm.
creepy as my friend has said when he drove through it, then it'll surely be a really interesting, creepy night visiting it.
Excellent.
As long as we don't mess with any SKs or W boys, I don't want
Yeah.
to be replaced or have my skin eaten or nothing like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's preferable. It's interesting you refrain from using the names because I actually just did. I mean, the timing will be a bit off, but when we're recording this, I just did a werewolf legend video for Haunted Montreal and list off a few of those, and I was like, do I say them or not? I was like, I'm gonna say them, but I'm bracing for impact, given the fact that I said the names. So we'll see how
Yeah.
that goes.
I mean, werewolf is fine, but
Oh
specifically
yeah,
I'm
but
talking
no,
about
we
like
no
the
we
windy
there's
boys.
yeah, there's four that I list and I say the names. So hopefully no one gets
Oh,
offended.
well, it's less about offending, it's more about like calling them to you.
Yeah, I'm
And
okay
I,
so
yeah,
far.
yes. Well, luckily, like you're not, I don't think, in an area that has legends about them necessarily.
There's a lot of stuff
Oh,
here. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
specifically, like, if you say the name and you're in an area that's, like, conjuring
Yeah.
them to you, if
Yeah.
you're not in an area, you can, like, say it, but here there's a lot of legends of them,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of, let's say, like, animals here that should not be here, that they
Yeah.
say, like, "Oh, this area doesn't have any coyotes," and then you'll see a freaking coyote manifest itself out of nowhere, or
Mhm.
it'll be like, "Oh, we don't have wolves here," and then all of a sudden there's a fucking wolf in
Yeah.
Southern California, and we're not supposed to have those. And we're also not supposed to have fairies, so who fuck knows?
I'm so excited to go there. If it wasn't clear already, I'm gonna be visiting Jenna in December, and we're very excited.
Yes. So you guys will have some special episodes coming around the holidays where we'll be visiting Black Star Canyon, doing some
Yeah.
investigating and some podcasts where we're in the same room together. And
Yes.
yeah, a lot of hopefully we'll be able to pack a week worth of really cool stuff in and start releasing it in the new year for you guys.
Oh, if anyone can do it, we can.
Oh yeah.
It's
We're
gonna be great.
our productivity together.
Oh yeah, it's psychotic. It's great.
Yeah. Our to-do lists are like this long each.
Yeah. Yep. Well, with that, I think we have filled people's minds with a variety of terror suitable for our special Halloween episode.
Yes. I hope you guys have a happy, happy Halloween and that you stay spooky and stay safe out there. And don't get abducted by
Yes.
aliens or
Yes.
need an exorcism or
Yeah.
don't summon the SKs and the Windy Boys.
Yeah, don't get your skin stolen. Happy Halloween.
Yes. Happy Halloween.
See you next week.
See you next time. Bye, guys.